Hello everyone, it's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to our channel again. Today I will actually say it's been a while since I made one of these videos, in part because I got busy with other things, in part because I really couldn't think of a topic to talk about, which was martial art related. And then someone asked me a question which I thought was interesting, and they said, how do you become successful at martial arts? And I thought it was an interesting question because success in martial arts is like success in life. It's up to the individual to decide what it is. What I mean by that is this: if you're starting martial arts, you may see success as in getting your black belt. That might be what you want to achieve. It may be to go to a tournament and win the gold medal in kata or kumite. It may be to go into a Muay Thai studio and win a contest in Muay Thai, or it could be going to MMA and competing at a professional level. All of those would be success, depending on what you want to do. And even within that, there's a lot of other things you can do to be successful in martial arts. And it's up to the individual to say whether they are successful in martial arts or not. And so I actually decided, well, instead of looking at specific martial arts, what makes someone successful? And part of that had to do with recently I've been helping some people uh, pretty much prepare and get the most they could out of college. And a lot of people don't understand college because they think, okay, you have to do X, Y, Z to be successful. And again, it's something that is very specialized. It's up to the individual to see what they actually want as success. So I decided to look at what makes someone successful in anything. And so I went online and I started watching people who we see as successful, be it in professional sports, in investments. I actually looked at Warren Buffett, for instance, in government, in different aspects of life. And what I found is there were things that were universal. What I mean is, it was at the point where you do these things, you're successful, and it doesn't matter if you're looking at martial arts or life in general. And a lot of them made perfect sense. For instance, I'll actually one of the big ones that they said if you want to be successful, and this is actually I found it in weight loss programs, is if you want to be successful in life, they tell you to wake up early. And the reason to wake up early is it has to do with when your body is able to use most energy. Usually at about 11, 12, it's actually when it's really going. And so waking up early is one of the big things that almost everyone found uh, you needed to do for success. The other thing that was interesting is how to approach failure. Uh, One of the people who was really successful said anyone who is successful has failed over a million times. Uh, One of the things that happens is a lot of people get frustrated with failure. They mess up and they get stuck on the looking at why they messed up, on looking at they messed up rather than the why they made a mistake, why they failed. Like I said, it's like people who are successful almost universally said failure is inevitable. You are going to fail if you try something new. But it's up to you to find how to minimize the failure and learn from it. If you actually learn from failure, failure is one of the best things that can happen to you. The other thing almost everyone said is ignore conformity. Now let's take martial arts in general. A lot of people get stuck and they stuck in conforming to martial arts. Oh, well, this is the way it's always been. That's the way it should be done. Well, if you only do the way things have always been done, if you don't look at new research, if you don't look at other things people are doing, you get stuck in that box. And you pretty much will never advance in martial arts to a point where you probably will find yourself a as a success. What I mean by that is this: if you try to copy other people, the best you can become is a imitation of the original. And so it's up to you to try to avoid the conformity and go into different ways to do stuff. Make sure they're logical. You will have to study. And that actually goes into number 4 that a lot of these people were telling you. If you want to succeed at anything, I mean, I thought it was interesting because it's people who are involved in sports where a lot of people don't think about studying for sports, one of the things that came across over and over is read every day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the subject that you're working on, but just read overall. Now, if you take martial arts, for instance, yes, you can read the anatomy, the physiology, the kinesiology. You can learn all the basics of that. You can also read about history. You can read fiction. You can see all these different aspects of martial arts, reading about it. And a lot of times you might be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Read some of the philosophies. And what's interesting is a lot of the things I'm saying are found in old philosophies which were involved in martial art culture. The other one is, I think, really important for, especially for martial arts. It's spend money. I mean, you want to get better at martial arts, spend money. Now, here's actually something funny. I'm going to use a gi as an example. The karate uniform. You can buy a $30 gi, and it'll last you for a little bit, or you can buy a $200 gi, which will last you a lot longer. Now, in the long term, the expensive gi will be better. It will actually last you longer, but it's also your equipment. It's what you're using every day. You can actually look at how this equipment is made to be able to give you what you need to do in it. Now, I'm looking at the gi, but think of anything. If you're doing boxing, the equipment you use for boxing will actually help your training or help your safety. And you think about it, mouth guards, not that expensive, but and there are ranges between mouth guards. If you use a great mouth guard, you might pay a little more, but you'll save more on dental work. So spend money. Also, it's actually a concept called the delay gratification. You're spending money for your success. You know you're losing something now, but it's going to come back to you in the future. Think about it. If you're dealing with martial arts, you can go to different seminars. You pay a little bit of money, some of them a lot of money, and you learn from people who know what they're doing in that particular area. And so you can take what you need from them. So that idea of spending money is important. The other thing that kept on coming up over and over is make sacrifices. Not just money, but with your time. Think about this. If you want to get good at any sport, you have to train. Think about if you play any sport, think about how much time you spend training for the sport versus just playing. I was actually watching something where someone talked about how there's two types of people who learn to fight. Some of them run in and just, learn by doing. They get in there, they might get beat up, they learn what they did wrong, they go get beat up again, and eventually they get good at just applying what they do. The other person ends up learning the technique and tries to purify the technique. Then he goes and tries to apply it, and then he goes a little bit more and a little bit more. And when you actually mix these two things, you will get something better. By actually spending time learning the technique, you, in essence, learn the technique. You don't have to get beat up, which leads to injuries. You don't have to get injured to learn how to do something right or wrong. You can actually just learn what you're doing. Now, there was actually some stuff that I thought was interesting. And one of the big things that I found came across is if you really want to be successful, spend time with creative writing. The reason they actually said is this actually inspires you. If you're writing creatively, it could be your memoirs, how and why your art is affecting you a certain way. It gives you a perspective in your life. It tells you why you're doing something. For instance, let's say you're overweight. I'll use myself as an example. You're overweight and you start writing about, okay, these are the changes that are happening as I do more exercises. These are some things that happen. You can actually do some creative writing to see where you want to go, what you have to do to get to where you want to be. One of the other things that ended up happening is I ended up finding like I said, everything. One of the big things that was important is prioritizing. Now, regardless to what you want to succeed in, prioritizing isn't a big important thing. What I mean by that is this. Okay, I want you to think of your average day. How many different things you have to do today? Now, for some people, they look at their day and they think, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. Then they just stop there. Other people say, okay, well, I'm just going to start in anything and go from there. Well, the problem with just starting anywhere and going from there is sometimes you start doing stuff that's not important. You think about it. If you have to write a report for work, but you also have to clean your house. Really, the writing report is what's important. You start cleaning the house more to get your mind into stuff, but it's not that important. You can clean your house whenever you want. You could have cleaned it 100 days ago, but what's important at that moment is the report. You can procrastinate on everything else. Do what's important. Prioritize. If you can't do something, well, you couldn't do it. That's fine. The other thing that they found most successful people were looking at were actually improving on themselves, never actually stopping making themselves better. Uh, Sometimes this is by reading and writing. Sometimes this was by finding out different ways to do stuff. This was actually a big thing. Always make themselves the best version of themselves that they could. The other thing, which is actually kind of interesting, and again, it works for everything, not just martial arts, not just business, is networking. Now, what I've found is most people who are really great at martial arts talk to other people who are great at martial arts, even some who are not great. I have a lot of people who talk to me who are great martial artists. And one of the things is, by networking, by talking to people, you can see different things that work, different things that don't work, and eventually go back to that whole idea of being creative, making your art work for yourself, finding new techniques, new things. And that's actually one of the important things that really people forget about is networking is important. Don't just get stuck in your own circle. Look at what other people are doing. If you do Okinawan karate, go to HEMA people and see what they're doing. If you do judo, look at Aikido. Don't just obviously mix everything together and see what works best for you. Remember, the idea is not to be a conformist who does something the same way as everyone else. The idea is to make your art work for you. Number 11, I know I haven't been naming them, but number 11 that I found was exercise consistency. Now, this is actually kind of funny because if you think about it, one of the things that I actually noticed is as I started teaching karate, my karate got a lot better. And the reason is, as I started teaching, I set up times when I was going to be teaching in the dojo. So I also set up a little time after where I was going to teach myself. And so my training became more and more consistent. This actually is a big thing because if you're consistent, you learn quicker, you find different ways to do stuff. The other thing is actually really important the next one actually is really important especially for people who are beginning martial arts. A lot of them start and they look at the black belt and say, that's where I want to be. And they don't look that there are different steps that you get to that you need to get there. Now, one of the big things that is important is to make attainable expectations. What I mean by this, if you've never been in martial arts before, don't think you're going to get your black belt in a year unless you want to pay $1,000 and, have everyone else think that, wow, this guy paid $1,000 and didn't learn anything. Make them attainable. If you're a white belt, look at your goal being the green belt. If you're a green belt, look at your goal as being the brown. If you're brown, black, keep on going. If you want to be a professional, think about this. Before you become a professional, you have to go to the different sporting events, which you may have to pay, but if your goal is to be a professional, you have to take certain steps. Make sure that if you go to a non-professional event make sure you train so you can actually get the highest levels that you can. Make your expectations realistic. I mean, you think about it. If you're a 45-year-old man and you decide, I want to be a professional fighter, you may be able to do it. I'm not going to say not, but it's going to be a lot harder than if you're younger and you try to do that. There are some people who have become professional fighters at an older age, but again, look at what you can and can't do. Injuries are a big thing. If you have certain injuries, it's going to be extremely difficult to do certain things. The last one that I found was interesting was daily meditations. Most people who are successful talk about how they spend about 20 minutes a day on meditation. Now, this doesn't mean they're trying to reach spiritual enlightenment. What this means is they take 20 minutes out of their day to think about their life, think about where they're going, think about what they want to be, think about what they're grateful for. for instance, I will tell you, I'm actually grateful for a lot of things, and one person in particular, my girlfriend, who uh, helps me out on a lot of things. But that's actually one of the big things: is take time to meditate, to think of where you are, where you want to go, and what you have in your life. Uh, and those were actually the big things that I found were really important if you want to succeed in everything. And as you can see, it works if you're in martial arts. By the way, Warren Buffett actually has a couple things he tells people if they want to be successful. One of the things he said is if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. If you're choosing a martial art, he says he can get you into a professional fight in a year that sounds really too good to be true. Chances are it will be. Uh, always look for how many others. Always look at how the other guy is making it. Big thing is if someone is telling you how to do something, for instance, actually, I talked to people when I wanted to start a business one time. I talked to people who didn't have business, and everyone told me how, well, most businesses fail after this amount. They never had actually built a business, but they were giving an opinion on businesses. What's funny is I found that the people who did know businesses actually gave good advice, which would help you make a business. Uh, the other thing he actually says is stay away from leverage or debt. Try to avoid debt whenever possible. There are some times that you won't be able to. He also said something else, which is, again, really important for the martial artist, and that is everything you learn is useful. If you actually learn to sweep a floor properly, that's actually useful for martial arts because, hey, it makes sure you have a clean dojo and a lot of times helps you prevent diseases. And the last one, again, it's something that you see in all the things that tell you if you want to be successful to use is invest in yourself. If you invest in yourself, you will get back your investment. Remember, this is investing in yourself. It doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to invest in myself by buying myself a 200 bottle of scotch and drink it in one day. That's not a good investment. Investing in yourself would be going to the gym, going to nutrition classes, going to anatomy classes, going to physical training, going to gyms, going to take classes with people who know what they're doing. Well, like I said, this was actually a list on pretty much how to succeed in martial arts. Again, it depends on successes varies on a lot of things, but it can actually be used in a lot of different areas of your life, including college, including what you're wanting to do in college. And I may talk a little bit more about college later, but I hope you enjoyed this presentation and have a nice day. Goodbye.